Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of my podcast. Today's episode is entitled What's Your Truth? And as usual, I will begin this podcast with a quote. Truth is the property of no individual, but is the treasure of all men. That is a quote by Ralph Waldo Emerson. So, what is your truth? What do you tell yourself on a daily basis? What do you believe? Who told you to believe that? And is that truth that you believe helping or hurting you? Every day, whether we notice it or not, these commercials that we put into our body or that we watch, that we sit down and watch during TV or that we hear on the radio, the things that we look at on our cell phone screen on Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, the various websites and stimuli that we put into our body through our five senses, all of that stuff is helping us to create a narrative and form perspectives and perceptions about life. And that is becoming, whether we know it or not, consciously or unconsciously, that is becoming the truth that we start to formulate opinions about people, places, things, ideas, and even ourselves. And a lot of times we don't focus on what our truth is. What do we believe at our core? Like, what do we believe about ourselves, about our community, about the world at large, politics, this, that, and the third? Like, what do we really believe? And, we don't take the time to step back and question the source, like, think critically, like, what is the agenda of this person? What is the intention of this person? Am I just agreeing with it because I like what I hear? Like, what is your truth? What do you believe as an individual? What do you hold dear, or what do you hold precious? What are your ideals? Not what somebody else told you. And why do you have those ideals? What's your foundation? What created that those ethics and those morals within yourself that you base so much other things on? What caused you to change or deviate from the way that you were to the way that you are now? These are a lot of hard questions that we can ask ourselves to determine, what's our truth? What information are we feeding ourselves outside of what we go out into the community and see on a day-to-day basis? Because we are, as a community, as a society, we are overstimulated. Like, we always have our eyes on the phone, we always have music blaring, we always have something, we're always doing something. We never really sit down and take time to think and be introspective and look inside ourselves and ask ourselves these hard questions. So this is a question that I've been posing a lot lately. What is my truth? And that's a question I've been asking myself on many different levels, a spiritual level, at work, about my friends, my family. It's just a deep question. It's not something simple. It's not something that you can just jump to an answer. I mean, there are exceptions. Some people are, detached from society, detached from all the stimuli and the negativity and all of that other stuff. But for the most of us, we're caught in the monotony and the craziness of life, and we really don't sit down and ask ourselves, what is our truth? Who are we at our core? We are constantly being bombarded by so much outside stimuli on what true success is, what true beauty is, what true intelligence is. But what is your truth? What do you think true beauty is? What do you think true success is? True success isn't a number. It's determined by what you hold precious, what you feel is valuable, and once you attain it, you have made it to a successful position. True beauty. What do you feel are true beauty? Not what society says is beautiful. What do you feel is beautiful? Do you feel you are beautiful? If not, why? Who told you that you're not beautiful? Why do you feel you're not beautiful? Again, these are questions that we need to ask ourselves over and over again, because it causes us to be introspective. It causes us to reflect on some of the bigger, more important questions in life. And then once we find our truth, then we can detach away from society and the pointless pursuits that we chase, like the need to be liked and loved by everybody, or the need to have flashy clothes or flashy jewelry, and just get comfortable with being ourselves and not having to put on makeup or wear this fake person around all day and come home and be this opposite person when the door is closed. So our truth is made up of our perceptions, and our perceptions are made up of our thoughts, which turn into our opinions. So, as we've talked about in other podcasts, our perception is our reality. What we see, what we observe, what we constantly think and focus on creates our opinions. Our opinions, in turn, formulate our perception. I think that all people who write with their right hand are smart, and then they put information out to support that. I find that information, I read that information that supports my thought, which then I formulate an opinion. Because all this information is out here, I think that my thoughts on this subject are fact. And that might not always be the case. I was just using that as an example. That might not always be the case, but that's how it generally works. We like to find evidence to support our claims. We like to feel safe in having the confidence that what we believe or what we know is 100% right. But there are things out there that we're not going to 100% know. There are things out there that we're not going to be able to prove or substantiate. And we have to be able to be comfortable with that. Because the truth is, we'll never know everything, all that there is to know. The truth is that what the world puts out in front of us is just the matrix. We're plugged into the matrix. It's not the full story. It's not the whole story. It's only one side of the story. We're not being able to see the full picture. I was reading an article and I forgot who said it. It was either a general or some politician. But I was reading a book or article on the internet, and this individual that was speaking in the article, he said there are known knowns, there are unknown knowns, and there are unknown unknowns. So known knowns are what you know. Like, hey, if I go around this turn, there's going to be, like when you're going home, if I take a left on this street, I know that my house is going to be there. That's a known known, or a situation in life where you're positive. There's the unknown known. There's like, hey, I know that if you go take a left on the street, there's going to be my house, but I don't know how many other houses are behind it, or I don't know who lives in those other houses. You know that there are houses there. You know that people live there, but it's unknown how many houses are actually back there, and it's unknown how many people or who are the people in those houses. You may know them as your friends, you may not know them as your friends. It's just a mystery. There may be just individuals that are in your community that you never engage with. And then there's unknown unknowns. You don't know. Those are things that you don't know. Questions that you don't even know how to ask or even know what to ask, or questions at the time you were assessing whatever you were assessing, your mission, yourself, something in class, a project. Questions you didn't even know to ask or think about or pose. So when we're going through life, these are categories we could break things down to that can make things easier. I like to work in categories because that makes things easier. And you can't categorize everything, but it's something that helps me to process things. In life, I used to categorize things in much like in computer, kind of binary, like ones and zeros. If it's not this, then it's that. And if it's not that, then it's this. But as I started maneuvering through life, I started finding that there's a lot of gray areas. So now I try to categorize things, but I also have the freedom and the flexibility to understand that it may not fit into a category perfectly, and that things can easily change to another category in some situations. So unknown knowns, known knowns, and unknown unknowns. Look it up. I'm sure if you type it into Google, it'll pop right up. I'll probably do another podcast and refer to it so I can give you an exact pinpoint on who said it or in what article it was in reference to. Our perceptions are heavily influenced by what we focus on. Thoughts become things. It is a law of the universe, the law of attraction, how we bring things into our life. Thoughts become things. What we focus on is what we create, what we bring into our lives. The vibration that we put out into the universe is going to attract that same vibration. Like attracts like. So in saying that, if our perceptions are heavily influenced by our thoughts, which formulate our opinions, and thoughts become things, opinions, and attracting other things into your life, then we need to be very cognizant or aware of what we're thinking about. Even, if we're going through the day and we're just kind of zoning out and stuff like that, we need to be aware of what we're thinking about, the narratives that we're constantly telling ourselves. Who's telling us information on a daily basis? Are they a reliable source? What's their intentions? Are they a friend? Are they somebody who has an ulterior motive? And I'm not saying be skeptical of everybody, but kind of be analytical. Live life intentionally. Don't just kind of cruise through life, because every situation is not going to be beneficial to you, and everybody that's in your life is not there for a positive reason. So you have to be aware of your surroundings. You have to be aware of the people in your life. You have to be aware of the situations that you put yourself into, and the hurdles that you're facing, because there's a lesson in it all, and the good will come with the bad, but we can avoid some of the bad. We don't have to drudge ourselves through the mud and the muck of life intentionally. We can, or accidentally rather, we can intentionally live in a manner that could help us avoid all of those issues altogether. This again is why we talk about self-talk, and I have talked about how we need to be cognizant about what we put in our body, both physically, visually, audibly, and spiritually. It's extremely important, and it's the little things, things that we don't even pay attention to, like the music we listen to. It's catchy, it may have a good beat, it may, be something that's easy to sing, to follow along with, but how many times have you actually listened to the words of a song? How many times have you really listened to what the artist is saying? Is the message uplifting? Like, does the message, resonate with you, your condition, the lifestyle that you want to live, the lifestyle you want for your kids, for your family, for your community? Is that helping or hurting, you or the people that you love? Whether either directly or indirectly, is it contributing positively or negatively to your life on any scale? As small as a scale as you as an individual, or on as big of a scale as your community or the nation. It's important that we watch what information, what stimuli we allow into our bodies, because the stimuli we allow into our body is how we learn. It's how we gather information from our environments through our five senses, and being conscious and being aware and being alert of where we are, who's there, and what information there is to perceive and to take in. So we need to be aware of what we are taking in at what point in time in our lives, because our bodies are just designed to absorb all information, like just everything we can see, everything we can hear, whatever we can touch, the sense of balance, the sense of, all the different senses that we have, the sense of uneasiness that you might feel. All of those senses come together to give us a picture of the world. And again, that picture can formulate our truth about ourselves, about the world outside of us. So we need to be very, very aware and very, very conscious of what we're allowing in our bodies on every level, even the smallest level, as what cartoons your kids are watching, because at that moment in time, they're starting to formulate who they are going to become when they become older. Because as soon as kids come out, they're always learning, always learning, absorbing everything. And if you don't have kids, watch some other kids. They'll ask you a million questions. They'll always be into stuff. They'll be trying to figure things out and learn things. They're always learning. So we have to be really careful, especially around kids, about what we let them listen to and what we let them be privy to, or what cartoons and TV shows we allow them to watch, because there's a lot of subliminal messages hidden in media as a whole. So we need to be very careful at that. At some point in time, we need to stand up for our own truth and stop letting people and circumstances dictate what we think of ourselves and our lives in general. You control your life. Don't give anybody else the pen to your story. You control your narrative. You control what you think. You control how you feel. You control the truth about yourself. If somebody says you're ugly, okay, you can feel that way, but I don't feel that way. If somebody says you're stupid, okay, you can feel that way. I don't feel that way. Prove them wrong. It only becomes the truth if you allow it to be the truth. It only becomes the truth if you allow it to be the truth. Again, in every situation that you're going to face in life, there's going to be one constant, and that one constant is going to be you. And this is why it's so important that we dedicate ourselves to the process of being introspective and working on ourselves and creating that stability internally. Because in every situation that we go into, that we enter into, the one tool that we're going to be able to bring with us is ourselves. All the education that we've gone through, the self-talk that we're going to be able to utilize while we're going through those tough times, the foundation that we've built on our ethics and our morals and our principles and our standards. These are the things that you're going to be able to bring with you into the dark times that are going to be able to help pull you through to the other side. And it starts with the smallest things, like what we read, the people we're around, what we hear on a constant basis, which can be good or bad, based on our environments. So, we need to be aware. I can't say that enough. We need to really be aware of our surroundings and what we're allowing into our bodies. Now, truth has two sides, just like everything, yin and yang, heads or tails, left or right. It's just the principle of balance. And truth is no different. So truth has two sides. And depending on the situation and the factors present and other variables, the truth can either be subjective or objective, meaning that it's up for scrutiny, or that it's infallible or you can't argue against it. A relative truth, for example, would be if you ask two different people to explain what happened, about an incident that they both saw. Now, they could both tell a very similar story, but based on their perspectives, based on, a bunch of different other variables. And I mean, the variables are, monstrous. It's just, there's so many different other variables that could be present. But if you ask any two people about the same story, there's gonna be differences about, what they saw. And it's not that they're telling a lie. They both saw the same incident, or they both saw the same occurrence, but just their perspective of what they saw is going to be completely different. Like, for instance, if you ask any country about a war, of course, the invading force or the occupying force is going to have one narrative that they're going to say. We're here for this reason, because this, that, and third. But if you ask the host nation or the nation that's going to battle with their country, well, they're going to say it's a totally different reason. And they're not lying, but just from the perspectives that they're fighting from, it's going to be a totally different narrative. And it's not that they're lying. They could very well be lying either side, but it's their truth. You know what I'm saying? It's the truth that they have come to accept, they have come to embrace. And at this point, in this example, they are actually willing to die for. Now, an objective truth is 1 + 1 = 2. That is objective. There's no way that you can come out and you can come against that and say that 1 + 1 doesn't equal 2. 1 + 1 will always equal 2. It's a mathematical fact. It's the principle by which math is built upon, is 1 + 1 will always equal 2. And then it just expands into further truths and more complex truths and principles and foundations of math. But there are many objective truths out there that you can't argue against, like the law of attraction, the principle of polarity, the principle of vibration. You may not be able to see, touch, feel, hear these laws, but they are real. They're 100% real. And you can't tell me otherwise. Like, it's just an objective truth. Like, they're 100% real. And if you just take and examine your life, you'll be able to see these laws at work in your life, either intentionally or unintentionally, but these laws are at work. They're objective truths. And again, just knowing this information that we discuss in these podcasts is not meant to give you all the information that's present out there on these subject matters, but is meant to create a spark. And hopefully that spark will kindle or become something bigger, and you'll do your own research and start to critically think and dig into some of these principles yourself, and come up with your own conclusions, your own opinions, and form your own truth. But I don't want you to be stuck in the truth based on just a robotic approach. Like, hey, my family, my friends, my community believes this is right, so now I believe this is right. That's not always the way to go. I'm not saying that it's wrong. I'm not saying that it's right. But we need to critically think about what we believe and who we are. When people try and tell you who and what you are, or who or what you can't and can be, that is a subjective truth. And it will only be true if you allow it to be true. What other people say about you does not have to be true. There are plenty of success stories out there about individuals who are against insurmountable odds, and they did things against the grain, where people said, hey, you won't be successful, hey, you can't do this because it's never been done. There are tons of stories out there. Just because that's their truth doesn't mean it has to be your truth. Just because they can't do it doesn't mean that you can't do it. That truth in that realm, in that situation, in that arrangement is subjective. Nobody can tell you the truth about yourself. You can rewrite your narrative. If somebody says you're stupid, you can prove them wrong. Or not intelligent, you can prove them wrong. You can study. You can take time and effort to set aside books that you can read and that you can dodge into, and you can make yourself intelligent. You don't have to be unintelligent. You don't have to be what people say you are. You control that. Nobody else controls that. If you become what they say you are, then you have allowed them to dictate your truth. You control your truth. You control who and what you become. It's a choice. Again, how we discussed that in a prior episode. It's all about choice. You have the choice to dictate what your truth is. Not the social media, not your parents, not your family, not your community. You have the choice. It's all up to you ultimately, because at the end of the day, you have to live this life that you've been given. And lastly, what the mind can conceive, it can achieve. You can do anything. It's only up to you to make the choice. So it's not what the media says about you, your community, the state you live in. It's not what the world says about your nation. It's not what science says, because even though science is a great foundation, we're always disproving science. As time goes on, we're finding more and more evidence to prove that, information that we had previously was wrong, or that, it was right from that perspective that we were looking at it. But when we look at it from a different perspective, it now has shifted and we've concluded a new truth. So put everything to scrutiny. Put everything to scrutiny. And then if it holds up to the test, if it holds up to your test, then so be it. Let that be your truth. But if it doesn't hold up to your test, and it doesn't serve you or the mission that you're trying to accomplish, then toss it to the side and find a new truth.